Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's video we are looking at two more characters from Star Wars A New Hope. Han Solo, Chewbacca. Han Solo, this is the first time we're getting this original Han Solo smuggler character in the vintage collection. We're nearly 400 figures deep into this line, and yeah, it's the first time that we've got him on this card back. There was a version back in the noughties, the vintage original trilogy collection. This is the first time Han Solo in his classic smuggler outfit has featured, and yeah, worth the wait. There's a couple of nitpicks which may be obvious on camera. I have to say, in person though, it looks a lot better, looks stronger, and that's the way a lot of these figures go when you get them in hand. Some of those details really really pop, and some of the things that you might see on screen that don't look as impressive, they're sort of a little more subtle, I guess, when you have them in hand. Chewbacca, it's again, it's using an old sculpt, but there are some significant upgrades in the hip department. Again, what can you do with Chewbacca? It's had minor tweaks over the years, and this one's no exception. Aside from like the odd paint upgrade, there's been facial updates along the way. But yeah, I mean the big difference is those new hips. Again, Hasbro has given us a lot in the A New Hope movie this year on that classic double racetrack card back. The one that is so iconic. The reason why so many of us collect the vintage collection. On the right here, we can see this is the new release. This is the new vintage collection release. On the left is the previous vintage collection release, and the card back itself, the picture on the card back, is considered a variant. Let's get the original Kenner Chewbacca out of the way. This is the one that started it all for Chewbacca. Really simple sculpt, but it's such an iconic look. This is as close as I've come to the owning an original Kenner card back. Well, it is an original Kenner card back, but obviously it's got some holes where people took out the proof of purchase for their offers and whatnot. As you can see, just want to bring in the card back comparison. So this is the first vintage collection release, so it is faithfully recreating the original card back. And this number was 141. So this Chewbacca, it took nearly 150 figures just to get a New Hope Chewbacca. Well, any Chewbacca on the vintage collection card back, which is just crazy when you think about such an iconic character of the Star Wars franchise, and he appears in so many movies. But yeah, it took nearly 150 figures to get that Chewbacca. This one obviously has a slightly different film out. It's the same scene but slightly different angle. I can see why they've done it. There are some figures where they will treat them as sort of repacks, refreshes in the line. They'll reuse the numbering if there's minor upgrades or just a repaint. But this is considered an all new Chewbacca, and has new numbering to boot. So aside from the card back image, there are some differences in the actual figure itself. Going to the head sculpt, pretty much, I mean, I can't tell any difference until you get down to like his mane just above the bandolier. I think the one on the newer version on the right seems to have a bit more going. I don't know if it's the previous version that has it sort of cut off a bit more, but yeah, there's slight differences there. The main difference though is in the around the hips. So his waist section, the lower legs, they look like the lower legs. The upper legs obviously are different. You've got the swivel thigh bit, and then the lower legs. That's a new sculpt as well, and obviously the feet as well. We've got rocker ankle feet. So there's some significant differences in the bottom section of Chewbacca, and then possibly some minor differences in the head sculpt. Although, I mean, the pose he's making, the facial expression, that all looks the same. I think it's literally just this little bit of mane coming down a bit further, and then yeah, other than that, it's just minor paint differences. I'm going to crack this Chewbacca open because I'm interested to see just how different he will obviously pose a lot more dynamically than previous versions, but it's still just minor tooling upgrades over what's essentially been 20 years for this figure. So a quick side by side with one of the previous Chewbaccas. He definitely does stand taller if he stands. I think those joints are going to need a bit of loosening up. Just zoom in a little bit so you can see a bit more in depth. He's like they're minor differences, the minor upgrades in those hips, but it's going to allow for, you know, this sort of dynamic posing, you know, Chewbacca with legs akimbo. Obviously, he's got the enough articulation in the arms, even if it's an older sort of sculpt. I don't think there's any difference in the actual arms there. You can get a pretty decent angle. Yeah, not a lot showing differently there. But he does look, again, I mean, the photo real, whatever they put in the sort of facial sculpts, he definitely has a bit more realism to him. There's the joints, let's put going on the ankle. There is a sort of ball joint there. Trying to get this in focus. So yeah, there are ball joints on the ankles. I think with a lot of these, you're going to have to just play around until you find a sweet spot. Just because they're on like ball joints doesn't mean that he poses that much, you know, more easily than his previous counterpart. The legs do look a little skinny in the upper thigh. That's a big gap there. Now this sculpt is going back 20 years. I mean, I know they're from different films, so I know Chewbacca has a slightly different sort of look to him in Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, being able to sort of achieve that wide leg stance without it being in a posed position, like, you know, the Chewie in the middle now, the Revenge of the Sith, he can only achieve that wide stance. The one on the left can only achieve legs together. This new Chewie can obviously achieve both, but there is a bit of a gap there, just below the crotch. I don't know how much that's going to affect, toy photography and getting him in poses, but just something that, you know, noticing on first glance. So yeah, I have to sort of get out of the habit of wanting to sort of just move this joint forward because it's on a ball joint. They do react differently. Yeah, I mean, it's a good Chewie, definitely. One that I wasn't sure whether he needed an upgrade, but I'll take it because, yeah, I mean, any version of these figures that allow you to do more poses can only be a good thing. The closest we've had to the smuggler Han Solo in the vintage collection goes all the way back to 2010. Hopefully this will stand up without... Yeah, okay, so it's the Yavin Ceremony Han. It's kit bash or repack. It uses parts from the Legacy collection, particularly in the head sculpt. This goes all the way back to the original trilogy Han from 2004, which in itself was a fantastic figure. I'm just going to grab that. It's in the cantina right now, having a shootout with Greedo. And you know, many people, this has been for the best part of 20 years the definitive Han Solo. The proportions are just right. The head sculpt, I mean, again, it's not photoreal or anything or up to today's standards. Just get that blaster in there properly. But this was like the colors were spot on, the proportions were spot on. I really like the head sculpt on this. Let's get that in focus. Yeah, they just capture something about Harrison Ford and the character of Han Solo there. But yeah, it's you know, that's a 20-year-old sculpt. But yeah, it's great to have Han and Chewie in this line together as well. You know, I say I've had these two either side of him up on my carded wall for a while now. The Yavin ceremony Han, again, the numbering that goes all the way back to 42. So again, you know, a fair few characters in before we got this version of Han Solo, but we did get some Empire Strikes Back versions of the character as well. In that first wave, we got the Echo base outfit. So again, like I've said, these figures, they do look better in person. Personally, I think seeing them up close, you do appreciate the head sculpt, all the little intricacies, and I think possibly something that will show up on camera and look a little odd, like the wrist joint here, where his sleeve is sort of higher up, but then you've got that wrist sort of joint as well. You don't quite see it. Well, you don't see it at all on the Endor Han. And then obviously this is going back to the vintage original trilogy, where obviously the wrist is higher up, but you haven't got that added articulation. You've just got a swivel at the wrist there. So personally, I love the vintage original trilogy collection version. There's possibly a reason he's not had that upgrade in so long. There's many Han Solos that have had skinny hips along the way. This vintage original trilogy collection has a really nice silhouette to him. Obviously, he's just now that little bit dated as we get into 2025, you know, into this new, midway through the 2020s. And yeah, I can't believe we've gone nearly 400 figures before getting the Smuggler Han. I've left the Endor Han there because they are very similar in their outfits. You can see some parts have possibly even been reused there, but he doesn't have that cut in the waist. So, you know, his body is just one long piece, and then he's got the join there. He doesn't need that much movement. You've got the hips that are giving him that movement. The head sculpt, again, I think up close, that's a really good likeness. Getting it close like that. I think some of these, and I include Luke and Anakin Skywalker, like the hair pieces look like they're kind of stuck on, especially with this one. I mean, I think that's possibly just been tacked on a little too high. His forehead obviously looks a little big compared with this. Obviously, there's 6 years apart in the films, so they should look different. But again, side by side, that A New Hope Han, yeah, I mean, they've done a great job there, I think. A really, really, really good job. Okay, let's get rid of Endor Han because he's not part of this. He's wrong movie. It'd be unfair to do a side-by-side comparison. Again, he's got all the articulation you'd need. He's got the rocker ankles, so he can have this wide stance, and you do see Han, wide stance, the gun out like that. I'm going to do this absolutely a disservice. I'll get him in some proper poses, and again, I'll have him in the cantina. You'll see how I've got him in a showdown with Greedo. This hand's not going away. He'll either pilot the Millennium Falcon or he'll be in various scenes for sure. There's one more figure I need to bring in, and that's the Death Star escape Han Solo. So let's bring him in. He's generally always been on my just Rebel Alliance shelf. I don't really have a Death Star diorama for my heroes. Maybe I need to sort that out. I've always sort of likened these to I said I've likened them. I mean, it might be a deliberate thing from Hasbro at the time, but these obviously have been, used throughout the years. But I've often seen this as sort of big and small head Han. Like, I know the proportions are the same, but for me, like, just comparing them to those original Kenner figures, I do think it's important when these releases come around that Hasbro does look to give you little factions, little groups, little teams. So Han and Chewie coming out in the same wave. That's important for me as a long-time collector, seeing Hasbro grouping them together. But if you're a new collector to the line, you don't want your random figures. You want to be able to sort of, I would say you'd want to be able to collect teams and pairs. And Han and Chewie go together like anything, don't they? So bravo, getting them out together. And again, you get the sculpting, you get that sort of consistency in sculpting in the production levels. Right, I'm going to try and get... Oh, I need to move a few things out. I'm going to try and get as close as I can to this little booth. This is my Han and Greedo setup. Just pulling back so you can see the actual cantina in all its glory. I've got all the tops of the booths taken up just so you can see inside them, and that's kind of how I want to go. I've got a really old 5 POA Chewbacca in there at the moment, so that's going to get replaced. I'm going to move a couple of figures out of the way. Yeah, I mean, the Greedo itself that's a hell of a sculpt. See my Greedo review on the channel as well. Just getting in here. So I thought the way I'd have the cantina, I was going to be able to get in nice and close with these alcoves, but to be honest, it's still a little bit fiddly, and there's so many figures, you know, loose stood in the cantina that it's very hard to not knock them over as you go around. But yeah, I mean, they both fit very well. In terms of placement, that might be completely wrong. The way I see it, Greedo sort of approaches sort of on this chair. Han Solo is on his little sofa. Yeah. Very cool. The fact that everything that you see here is a 2025 release just shows that Hasbro are still giving us collectors, you know, what we want from the original trilogy. It might not always come when we want it, but they're still devoted to giving us original trilogy figures. So I've knocked a few over in the process. But yeah, long may this continue. Thanks, Hasbro, and thanks to the collecting community, because, you know, it's still such a strong voice out there. And without these sort of fan initiatives like Victoria's Cantina and the Time for Tonica, you know, we wouldn't get half this stuff. So yeah, 2025, we're coming up to a 50th anniversary, but we do at least have the main heroes well ahead of that time. Here we go from another angle. Yeah, I mean, I think it's decent, isn't it? I haven't quite got his leg up on that table, but he's got enough articulation that he can achieve that, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a fairly unnatural pose, I guess, for an action figure to do that, if we were to do that. But yeah. Yeah, well, that's it from me, Dave the Dead. Thanks for watching. We've got 2 more characters updated, 2 more key characters from A New Hope updated in 2025. We've got another ticked off the list for the original 96, and again, as mainer characters they come in Han Solo. Thanks for watching. I've been Dave the Dead. If you like what you see, please drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more like this, and you know, get the notifications and all that. But also comment, you know, keep this conversation going. Are you impressed by the new Han Solo, the new Chewie? Are you done with A New Hope? Do you want to see any more from this film, from this line? You know, Return to Tatooine has had a strong year, but it doesn't mean it has to be over. So yeah, I mean, I'm up for more of the same. We know we're getting Geonosis next year, but there's always room for more original trilogy goodness. All right, guys, till next time, may the Force be with you.